Hey there. Well, I've been back in the music production game for a few years or several years now, and I've made a lot of mistakes on this journey. I thought I'd share some of these mistakes with you for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of times we are doing this music thing and we feel like we're alone and nobody knows exactly what we're going through. I'm here to tell you that I've made some mistakes and I've been there and I feel ya. The other reason is that if you haven't made some of these mistakes, hopefully you can learn from this and not make some of these same mistakes that I've made. I have numbered these lessons learned or mistakes, but they're not necessarily in order from bad to worse bad. All right, the first lesson learned or major mistake that I've made since I've been along this journey is that early on, I paid too much attention to vanity metrics. I totally get that as artists, we want data-driven feedback so that we can know how we're doing, especially when we're new on the scene and we don't really have much to go on. So we go with whatever is easily available, and that happens to be vanity metrics. And those are things like Facebook likes and Instagram heart reactions and followers and SoundCloud plays and things like that. Those are really only one indicator of success, and I would say that those are a fairly shallow or superficial indicator. They don't tell a whole story. For example, I suspect that SoundCloud is inflating some of its play counts so that we as customers of SoundCloud are incentivized to stay on the platform. I don't have any data to back that up, and maybe they aren't, but sometimes things just don't seem to add up with my SoundCloud plays versus the number of followers that I have. I don't necessarily trust that data. And, the number of likes or followers that we have is not necessarily indicative of someone or of people who are really into our music and who we're making a real connection with. All right, so I'm going to say an unpopular statement within the house music community, and that is that I would actually say that Traxsource DJ charts are adjacent to the category of vanity metrics. And let me explain why. So my best-selling tracks haven't always been the tracks that have had the most DJ charts. Conversely, my tracks that have a lot of DJ charts haven't necessarily always sold that well. So it doesn't seem like there's a correlation between DJ charts and sales. And I think that sometimes people, we chase after DJ chart placements so that we can have that number of DJ charts at the end of the year on that our Traxsource badge. But it doesn't necessarily really indicate that somebody is actually supporting our music. It could be that people are looking for us to reciprocate the chart placement or for any number of reasons, or maybe they're trying to do something for the label. And I'm not saying that this is always the case. I'm just saying that sometimes people's motives for placing your music on DJ charts isn't because they like your track. I'll leave it at that and we'll move on. All right, so another thing that I have, another mistake that I've made along this journey is not letting go of the things that I can't control, and the things like unmet expectations. So examples of that would be things like not getting the gigs that I want to get, or that I feel like I deserved or worked hard for. Things like records not selling as many copies as I thought that they would, or I had hoped that they would, or that the tracks aren't selling as much as the last track, even though I felt like it was a better track, things like that. And then, of course, there's always going to be the people who don't follow through, and then promoters or venues who flake out and whatnot. And so that can be hard to deal with sometimes. It is kind of a form of rejection when people don't follow up with us, and after we've followed up with them and put some time into them and showed up for them. But that's just something that we can't control. And I'll say that I have not always handled it at the best, or I haven't always handled setbacks very well, especially when it comes to the people side of things. I'll just say that there's a lot of variables that we can't control. So I've been working really hard on focusing on the things that I can control and developing good habits. So some of these things that I feel like I can control are Music production, I can control that output, how many tracks I'm working on. Now, so yeah, of course, I'm limited by time, but also, I can control my time to a degree, and I can be responsible for how many tracks I output, and so that is something I can control. I can't control the results of how many sales I make, so it's not really worth worrying about. And so that's something I've worked on is making sure that I have my mindset right in that department. I can also focus on activities that grow this community and grow my community. So that's like developing strong relationships and then publishing authentic, meaningful content. It's sharing content that goes deeper than, hey, my new record is out. It's on Weekend Weapons. Go buy it. Check it out. And there's a place for that, and I've definitely done my fair share of that. But I've gotten to the point where I want to have a little bit more sense of purpose when I share something on social media or to my email list. And so those are things that I can control. Count Basie is quoted as saying, "Learn to deal with the valleys, and the hills will take care of themselves." And I love that. I haven't really mastered this. I haven't mastered taking care of the valleys yet, but I've made a lot of progress, and I'll say that my valleys aren't as low as they were, and they don't happen as frequently as they used to. So, no, let me rephrase that. So they don't seem to go as low because I'm getting better with my mindset, and then when these setbacks do happen, they don't seem to last as long as they used to. So I feel like there's some improvement there, but I still have a long way to go before I've mastered this. Okay, another lesson that I've learned, or another mistake that I've made, is that I used to focus on things that don't grow my community. And I'll give you an example. So showing up for local events and local promoters and local scenes, there's definitely a place for that, and it's definitely a necessary thing. But I think that sometimes we show up for the wrong reasons, and we also show up for the wrong factions in a community. I don't know how to say that better, but sometimes there's people who are supportive, and then there's people who aren't supportive and will never be supportive. And so it's really important to learn who those people are that are going to support you, and to spend time with those people. For example, there's people in the scene who care a lot more about scene politics, and they seem to find themselves in drama all the time, or a lot of the time, and those are people to avoid, and those are bad energy people, and they're not going to be on board for your career or for your artistry. Another thing that I spent my time on focus on was event hosting and promotion. So for a while, I hosted a monthly event series in a big metro area about an hour and a half away from where I live. It was pretty successful, I would say. Like, for my standards, it was pretty successful. I did get the results that I wanted, but while I did, I really enjoyed sharing that vibe with others, and feeling that sense of community. It was also exhausting, and I felt like I was spending a lot more time and energy than I was getting back. I'll just leave it at that. There was also a time where I was hustling to get gigs at local restaurants and lounges, because they do pay, and there was some money to be made. But while it was really fun, I realized that the legwork required to get those kinds of gigs wasn't necessarily, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze for the amount of effort that I was putting in. You've got to deal with flaky restaurant owners and managers. To be fair, sometimes they seem like they're being flaky, but they're really just busy and understaffed. But it's still not fun to deal with, and it's still a lot of effort. It's just not worth it sometimes. So, in a lot of those cases, they see music as more of an afterthought, and I need to be putting my energy towards people who want to put music first, and for people who music is a priority. And the other thing is that with these restaurant and lounge gigs, they don't necessarily help grow an audience if they're in a local space where typically you might find like some folk music or more like guitar driven music, and then just some every once in a while they have like a house music DJ. The people that are supporting those restaurants aren't necessarily there for the music, and so it's not really a big way to grow a fan base or an audience community. And also, there's the opportunity cost of leaving my production and then leaving my family to go and play restaurant lounge gigs that weren't necessarily going to help me build a community. All right, another thing that I focused on was, and I really enjoyed this for a while, but that would be my regular mix series, Refuel Your Soul, and I may go back to that at some point, but it was really enjoyable. I did enjoy that, but it got to the point where I was no longer having fun with it. It felt more of like a chore, and it felt like more of like a checkbox to check because I said that I would do something and I wanted to follow through. And so I didn't really have a whole lot of joy in that like I used to. And then also I wanted to start creating more content, more different kinds of content to put out there that would hopefully serve you and serve the house music community as a whole more. Something that I could feel that I felt was a little deeper and more differentiated, if you will, than a mix series that sounds like a lot of other mixes. I mean, there's a lot of really good mixes out there, and I'm not trying to minimize those. I'm just saying that my music my mixes weren't necessarily standing out, I felt, from other mix series. So that's why I started writing articles and creating videos like this. It's all about serving you and connecting with you on a deeper level, and hopefully we'll have more opportunities to connect in the future, and hopefully in real life and in person. So I'll say that the lesson learned here is that, after family and work responsibilities, my artistry is my highest priority. Playing scene politics and games is not a priority for me. If an activity is not directly related to serving my audience community, or it's not really contributing to my growth as an artist, I'm not doing it. If I have multiple good options that can serve and grow my community, but I only have time and energy for one or two, I'm going to choose the activity that helps me connect with you on a deeper level. Number 4. This one's really embarrassing, and I really almost didn't even include it because I don't like what I did here, but that was buying plays for my first self-release. So when I first started producing music again, I didn't really have any connection with labels or anything like that, and I put a record out there using a distribution service, I think a CD Baby, and I really had no audience to speak of, and so I wanted to experiment with a few things, and one of those was buying plays for the first track that I put out. Now, granted, it was only 3,000 plays, so it was like $75, and it's not like I was buying like 100,000 plays or anything like that. And again, it was just like an experiment. But fortunately, I only purchased plays. I didn't purchase likes or followers or anything like that. So there's that. At least there's that. I have that saving grace. I knew in my gut that it was the wrong decision, but I did it anyway in the name of experimentation. But you know what? I think it's okay to experiment, and sometimes we have to learn that our gut is telling us something for a reason. And so the results of that experiment were that I got the vanity metrics of what I paid for. I got 3,000 plays, but I kind of felt icky afterwards, and I didn't get any new fans. It didn't really grow my audience or help me connect with real people. And I knew that in the long run, buying plays like that isn't sustainable. So if you're trying to maintain an appearance of something with those vanity metrics, it's a hamster wheel that you can't get off of. Like if you keep expecting to put on the same front. Like I said, I only purchased plays. I didn't buy followers for my profile, but still, it was a big mistake. I will say that I kind of rectified that mistake by deleting those tracks off of SoundCloud and then re-uploading those as new tracks, so that those plays aren't really counting towards what you see on my profile. So lessons learned are to follow my intuition, don't buy plays, grow a community or organically, and then there are no shortcuts. Anything that isn't authentic is unsustainable and it's not long term. All right, number 5. I spent time pursuing opportunities that don't align with my goals and values. So, for example, I applied to play at a festival that was mostly a rock music festival. I know that sounds so ludicrous. Why would I even apply that? Because it was a local thing. It was just like something like that was 45 miles away, and I thought, hey, why not? I'll just apply for it. Um, you know, like I said, those lineups for those festivals, they've been doing it for several years. There's a couple here locally, and they've only played like guitar driven blues and rock and folk music, etc. And occasionally they might have like a hip hop artist or two, but no electronic music, no house music for sure. And I thought that I wanted that because I thought that that would be kind of validating for me in the local scene. But ultimately it was something that was a bad decision, or that I shouldn't have applied for. And I actually got an offer to play there, but then I knew I had this nagging feeling in my gut that that wasn't really going to be the right venue for me, or the right platform for me to share my music and build an audience and grow a community. And so I ended up pulling out and not doing it. And, circling back to that discussion on restaurants and lounges, I'll say that those kinds of opportunities aren't necessarily always the best, because, if you're playing at a restaurant that has like 15 TVs on, and if they're all playing different things, it's not going to necessarily fit well with the deep and soulful vibe that I'm going for. And so, people are already distracted by their phones, and then to have 15 TVs on top of that, and then like a loud kitchen, etc. That's not always the best opportunity, or the best place to put my energy. And the guests that are there for those kinds of venues aren't necessarily there for the music. All right, so another mistake that I made is being disorganized. At the beginning of this journey, I was moderately disorganized, and I didn't really have systems in place for the many activities that we have to do as artists these days. And if you have a chaotic situation, you can't really. It's hard to be creative when you have a lot of mess around you, or a lot of I don't know, a lot of a lot of things strewn all about, or a lot of information even in different places, etc. So I've actually started getting really into systems and applying a lot of my day job skills to my artistry. And so the first area that I've tackled is music production. I started separating my workflow into different stages. So it actually may seem counterintuitive, but having more structure and in your music production workflow can actually enhance creativity, or at least that's what I have found. If I have different phases for working on things, I can focus on one thing. So, for example, I have I start off with a composition phase, writing the music and not really worried about sound design too much, or mixing things. Now, this isn't to say that I never put a low shelf or a low cut on something and block out some lower frequencies when I'm writing, but I don't spend a ton of time mixing, and I focus really a lot on composition at one time, rather than so many things all at once. Because mixing is a completely different skill set, and when you're mixing, you're not also having to worry about arranging, and when you're arranging, you don't also want to be worrying about mixing then as well. So this is really geeky, but I have actually started using Kanban style boards to help with organizing my music projects and where they are in the process. And this wouldn't necessarily be helpful if you only have one project. But actually, I would even argue that even having one project at a time, it's still helpful to know what phase or stage your project is in, and to separate the intellectual horsepower required for each of those different phases. All right, so another area that I've gotten really organized about is with demo submissions. At one point I'd finish a track and then start shopping into labels without any real plan. I'd message some label owners that I know, and a lot of times they would pick it up, and then, or they would say no, and then I didn't necessarily track it. And fortunately, I didn't make the mistake of sending the same demo to the same label ever. But if I could see that potentially happening if I had a lot of demos all at once, and sending those to a lot of labels all at once. And so I think that being systematic about demos and tracking those demos or demo submissions, that can be really important once you have a lot of output. And so I'll say that planning out your demo submissions on a spreadsheet or some kind of a board again it can really help with clarity and just staying organized and not having to spend mental energy on the administrative part of our music business, so that we can focus on creativity. All right, so another area where I've started really becoming super organized is music releases and promotion. Whether we're self-releasing or if it's with a label, there's still a lot of different tasks that we have to keep track of. So, for example, and we have to keep track of, do we have the cover art? Have we put information out on social media or to our email list about the release? And I don't know, just tracking those things can be kind of heavy if we don't have a system for that. So, suffice it to say that today I've become a lot more organized. I've tried different tools for managing tasks. I've tried just like regular Google Docs with checkboxes and whatnot. And then I've also tried spreadsheets and a Trello board. And I've found that task management software like ClickUp, Notion, and Airtable is probably my favorite way of actually tracking those things. All right, so there you have it. Those are some of the mistakes that I've made. I've learned a lot along the way, and I continue to learn and grow as an artist. And I hope that we can learn from each other. So feel free to share some mistakes that you've made as well, either in the comments or just send me a DM or something like that. And we can trade war stories. All right.